Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, once again for another round of the TRR 2020 Championship. Tonight we're here for round 24 with the XFR and UFR Aston Grand Touring. I'm joined in the commentary box by Thilo Falkenberg, Jack Eyre, and someone new for you today, Adam Brown, who's normally driving for TC Racing but has decided to come and give us a bit of a different view of his series to date, really. Hi guys, I'll start with you, Adam. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's a bit of a change for me today. Bit weird to be watching instead of racing, but I think I'm going to have some fun.
Well, we're thankful to have you with us. It should be a laugh. Thilo, welcome back.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's quite crowded in here, I must say.
Yeah, it's quite a busy Tuesday. And Jack, how are you this evening?
I'm good, thank you. Feels weird to be back after a week off. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it last week, but caught up with the broadcast afterwards. And like Thilo says, definitely crowded in here. Adam's actually sat on the chair I'd usually put my feet on. No, he's not. Well, obviously, social distancing at home and stuff. Hope everyone else is staying safe. And yeah, some Team Rock Racing Tuesday action coming up for you.
Yeah, speaking of which, we are due to start a quality session any minute now.
2 minutes, we just got the notice for.
Okay, great. So yeah, 2 minutes until qualifying begins. Thanks for that, Adam. So yeah, tonight's format, we have about 18, well, in fact, exactly 18 minutes of qualifying and 2 6-lap races in the XFR and UFR cars. Jack, have you got a little bit of information on those cars just yet?
I have. So the XFR is the first that I'll start mentioning. It's a 2-litre inline 4 engine producing 230 brake horsepower. It weighs a bit more than the UFR at 840 kilograms. So the power to weight ratio for that particular car is around about 279 brake horsepower per ton, whereas the UFR, the smaller of the two, only features a 1.4 litre inline 4 engine, making 50 less horsepower at 180. But it weighs 600 kilograms, so that's 240 less than the XFR. So the smaller UFR actually has a stronger power to weight ratio of 304 brake horsepower per ton. Now these are conventional hatchbacks. Obviously they've got a McPherson strut at the front and a trailing arm at the back, so you know, traditional hatchback style. But it's curious to see which one will come out on top. I mean, we were talking about the differences between the two earlier on, chaps, whilst I was just making notes. Which one is it that has the fastest top speed? Because the only other differences, apart from obviously the power and the weight, is the gearbox in the two. The UFR features, I believe, a normal H-pattern gearbox where the driver has to manually press the clutch in to go up and down the gearbox, whereas the XFR has got like a sequential ignition cut gearbox where you can just keep the power planted and, you know, go up and down them gears.
Yeah, it looks like the XFR is just a tad faster in a straight line, which will be interesting to see how the battles evolve with that, you know. Faster in a straight line, but not so fast around the corners.
Yeah, especially with it being 240 kilograms heavier. Obviously, like you said, faster in a straight line, not so good in the corner. So qualifying is now underway. Everybody's making their way out onto the track. At the front of this leading group on their outlap, we have Sidus's Rick Cardle, the number 66 purple machine that you can probably see on your screen right now. Everybody wants to get into a bit of clear air. I'm not sure how these guys are setting their qualifying setups up. I would assume that they're only good for around about a lap, maybe. It's quite a long lap here at Aston Grand Touring. I'm not giving you much information about the track. We are, of course, like I said, at Aston Grand Touring, 8 kilometers in length, 5 miles if you're from the UK or the US. So we've got 16 corners today, 6 to the left and 10 to the right. We'll take you round a lap on board when the drivers get up to speed later on, but we've got 17 minutes now remaining in qualifying, so shorter qualifying session this week.
Yeah, really interesting. Usually with these longer laps, you would prefer a longer qualifying session. You need to know that an outlap here takes around 3 minutes.
It depends how much fuel you put in, Thilo.
Yes, definitely.
And how many passengers you've got on board.
But you've got a 3-minute outlap, then the actual hot lap times are somewhere around 2 minutes 50, depending on your skill and your lap.
Yeah, so depending on how the drivers do behave on their outlap, we'll see around about a 3-minute outlap with the pit lane, obviously.
So at the end of the day, you just have 3 tries at your qualifying time.
It's interesting to note that some of the drivers have picked R3s at the front, whereas some have gone for R2s. R2s are a softer compound, so they'll be faster, but they might wear out by the time the hot lap's over.
Yep. R2s being the softer of the two, also are slightly easier to get temperature into. But like you said, Adam, some people, maybe with the shorter qualifying session that we have and the longer outlap and lap time in general, could potentially be going for more than one attempt per run to save them from doing a 3-minute outlap every time.
Just doing the maths in my head, it would be very close. I think some people may only manage 2 hot laps.
Yeah, that would be a big change to the rest of the events we've had in this season so far.
Don't forget though, you don't necessarily have to drive into the pits in order to go get a fresh car. So if you make a mistake, even if it is on your out lap or your fast lap, you can just quickly jump back into the pits and come out with a fresh car in literally a matter of seconds. So we're going to jump on board with Rick Cardle now for Sidus Racing. So through turn number 1. Surface of his tyres are nice and, well, close to up to temperature, but you can see he's struggling ever so slightly with the understeer through the initial left-hander of turn number 2, but it's nice and clean and tidy on the exit now. You can see that rear end wanting to step out ever so slightly. All the weight, or the majority of the weight in these cars is towards the front for the UFR. 62% of the weight distribution is to the front, because that little 1.4 litre inline 4 engine is tucked away underneath the front end there.
And interesting to note, we've already 4 minutes through the session and he's barely gone over the first split time, Jack.
Definitely, this is what we were saying, you know, you can't necessarily afford to make too many mistakes in this qualifying session because, you know, like you were saying, if you do some maths, you might only realistically get 2 shots at it. Some people might be taking it easy on the first attempt in order to get what we'd call a banker lap in. Tackled turn 6 nice and well. Quite far from the apex through turn number 7, but you keep the momentum slightly more, taking the longer way around the corner.
This is one of the most fun parts of the track coming up here through the S's as Rick Cardle gets a little slide on.
Yeah, goes over the curb a little bit there and he's touched the grass again and he's run wide.
This corner especially, you can carry some right speed through there and it's really rewarding if you really dig into the throttle.
As we run underneath the Michelin bridge, I'm just looking at his little tyre graph that I've got on. The inside of both of his front tyres getting quite warm, so he's running quite aggressive cambers for the qualifying set. As Ricardo we'll see if he commits to another lap after this. However, I think, I mean, with us being around about 3/4 of the way around his first timed lap, I'm wondering what his tyres will look like next time around. Is he going to have a life in them? Braking at around about 90 meters now for turn number 15.
Everybody
Not
who's
too close
committed
to the apex there this time.
Everyone who's committed to a 2-stint qualifying strategy will only get 2 timed laps in. Confirmed. So anyone who's on an R3 strategy probably get 3 or 4.
Yeah, as you can see, Jaban behind Rick Cardle, he's on R2s and his right front is red. It's totally ruined.
Oh, Rick's going for another lap, look.
It looks like it, yeah. His tyres have seemed to normalise a bit. They don't necessarily get too warm in at least the final sector. There's not really any corners you can particularly load the car up through. Whereas it's that, it's the second and third split around about turn 6 onwards up until about turn 12 where the elevation changes and they're all flat out almost, these corners. So yeah, tyres around about healthy enough for him to do another lap. However, look how close the times are at the top. So Rick Cardle was the first man across the line, set a 2 minute 54.93. Now Japan has gone and a second faster than that.
And
Well,
I think the reason
0.99
he's
of a
gone so
second
much
faster than
faster, the reason he's gone so much faster is because he's got R2s on. So even though they've got more wear at the end, at the start he'll be able to take full advantage of the softer compound.
Quite a spread of times that we're seeing so far. 8 now as Arco crosses the line and takes pole position away from Japan. Frank slots into 3rd position as well. So Arco, a couple of tenths faster, or just shy of 2 tenths faster than Japan. What can Rick Cardle do? I wonder if he's improving this lap. I'm gonna stick with him and let you know. He's a lot more confident though, I'll say that, from what I've seen of his laps so far. He's hit the apex a lot more often. So whether this was his main attempt, whether he wasn't quite sure he'd got enough temperature into the core of the tyre to really push it, we'll see when he crosses the line later on. So we're almost about halfway through this qualifying session. I think we had 18 minutes and we've got just under 10 now. So once we get down to about 3 minutes of qualifying, that's when the last attempts will be made. So anybody that leaves the pits with around about less than 3 minutes remaining, don't think we'll quite make it around to set a fast lap, but we'll see.
As you see, Salmonen's just set a lap. He's normally one challenging for the lead, but as he's picked the XFR, it looks like that's about 2 seconds slower than the top times in the UFR.
Rick Cardle, just watching him navigate turn number 16 there, somebody had moved all the tyres at the apex, so he comes across the line and it is going to be a 53. So look at that, Rick Cardle with the R3s. Took him an extra lap to get the temperature into them, but look at the lead that he has now. Massively faster than Marco in 2nd place. And I think Rick Cardle's going to go for it again. I think his tyres have normalised now. You can see that. I'm not quite sure if he's actually on what we'd call a traditional qualifying set within LFS, so don't think he's running extremely low tyre pressures, and I think it was maybe just the way he was warming his tyres and the way he drove on his first lap that caused the inside of his fronts to heat up slightly. But there are definitely places like the long straight that I could noticeably see the inside temperature coming down ever so slightly. So maybe this is the race set that he's using, because he's on his 3rd attempt now. Here's the man on pole position.
Yeah, so we've slightly misjudged people's strategies for this qualifying session, but
I think that's just due to
the normally see, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the variety of the whole calendar, really. You know, we were saying it's one extreme to the other, and even qualifying sessions reflect that. So being caught out left, right, and centre, and it's nice to have a series that it's got so much variety in the calendar, because you'll find different people on the podium week in, week out, and it's a great test for the drivers.
$15 cars set a time. And as you can see, there's quite a wide range of times, 4.13 seconds separating the fields. It is a long lap, so well, it's not really surprising to see such a wide spread.
Rick Cardle again on another fast lap, consistently getting fast split 2s.
So Rick's strategy really seems to pay out.
Yeah,
pay off.
We'll wait to see in the race whether he can keep keep up this pace. He should be able to, seeing as it looks like he's setting these on his race setup.
Yeah, only 6-lap races. I know that 6 laps doesn't sound like a lot, but when you've got a 3-minute lap, it's still nearly 20 minutes of racing.
Yeah, I think Rick is actually able to complete 6 laps here in this qualifying session.
And he does. Look at him, he's gone even faster now. So I think the time he set before was a 53.3. He's now on the brink of the 52s, so more than 6/10 clear of anybody. The closest to him at the moment, of course, Arco in second position. Nobody seems to have been able to respond to Ricciardo's times just yet.
So, do you think we're going to see Ricciardo shooting off at the start of race 1 and no one's really going to have any competition? What are we thinking?
Well, we've got 5 minutes left. Let's see whether anyone can get up to his time in that in the time we've got left in quali. But if he carries on at this rate, I wouldn't want to bet against him.
But one needs to remember that he's using a very different strategy to the rest. Japan, for example, is just doing the classic outlap, hotlap rhythm, probably with a special set for the session with softer tires. So it's probably more a case of, well, his race setup seems to work better in the end than all the other qualifying sets.
But as we just saw, Japan on that outlap hotlap strategy, still 3/4 of a second off Ricciardo, who's seemingly lapping on a race setup.
Chris McElroy, perfect example of why the XFR maybe wasn't the best choice for this round, because he's a whole 3 seconds down on Ricciardo's split 3 time.
I think Arco might improve on this lap. I think he will, actually. He's a couple tenths off of Ricciardo's split 2 times. Arco makes his way across the start-finish line, and he does improve to a 53.48, but it's still over 3 tenths shy of pole position. And he immediately pits afterwards. His tyres obviously suffering a bit more than Ricciardo's, whether that's just down to maybe lower pressures, more aggressive cambers. It could be down to the driving style. You know, these cars obviously front engine, front wheel drive, and the slick tyres. So you go mad on that loud pedal, you're gonna spin them fronts up in especially the slow speed corner. So like turn 3 and 4.
As we see Japan through sector 4.
Yeah, Japan currently on an outlap.
Frank, unfortunately, for Team Rock Racing, made a bit of a mistake just through the final corner. I think he was on his outlap, so with us just having over 3 minutes remaining in quali, he can leave the pits and should make it around safely to have another go.
Someone else who will get another go will be Arco. He timed his run well, actually, so he'll get another outlap and another hot lap, and probably will be one of the last guys across the line to set his final hot lap.
So yeah, Japan might have managed to get a third hot lap, even though he's using the pit and rejoin tactic.
Just noticing, the best placed XFR is currently Pedro with a 2-minute 54.75, so 1.5 seconds slower than the current pole position time.
But he's quite a lot faster than the next again XFR. There's a whole maybe half a second in that.
Yeah, we'll see how this plays out in the race, the XFR UFR strategy. I can't recall off the top of my head how each of these cars start. I can't imagine the XFR is going to be particularly quick off the line compared to the UFR, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah,
I think the UFR will have, again, the initial launch just because it's significantly lighter. But I think once we get to the speeds where, gear changes are important, clutch times and stuff, the XFR will have a slight advantage going up the gears, of course, with that sequential box and the ignition cut. The driver can keep the foot planted and just go up through the gears with the paddles.
And there is a reasonable run down to the first corner, but I'm not sure if it's quite enough for the XFR to really start gaining on the UFR.
Yeah, and it's got obviously to make up the time that it will lose in the initial launch as well. So we'll see how Pedro fares. He's just been pushed down to 9th position now.
Yeah, Kake Propo just did an impressive time. He's only a 100th of a second behind Arco. And speaking of Arco, am I right in saying he's aborted?
I'm not 100% sure. I'll just double check that. I was,
It does look like
scanning
it.
around.
Yes, he did.
So Arco ran out of time, unfortunately.
Piroppo's still
that
on a
lap.
lap, so he's going for another one. So Piroppo, with 48 seconds left on the counter, will be one of the last cars across the line. Runs a bit deep in hairpin number 1.
Yeah, I think he had a bit of a lock up there on the way in. You can see just how far away from the apex he was. So
It's interesting to see how he's only set a lap later in the session, because I think he was at the top of the board in practice.
Right, well, let's see if he can nail it on this lap. He's already made one small error. He won't get time for another lap, obviously, with 20 seconds left. But yeah, he looks like the person who can threaten Rick Cardle's pole time, even with that small error.
I mean, even with that error, he's set a good split too. So let's see how he fares in the rest of the lap.
Yeah, he's coming up to... Go on, Jack.
A 1 minute 3.58 so far. When he gets to the next split, which is around about where the Michelin Bridge is, just before turn number 12, we're looking for a 157. If it's around about there, a high to mid 157, he's on for a very, very fast lap.
The clock has hit 0.
So the timer has hit 0. The last person on a fast lap, I believe, is Rick Cardle. V2R's twin is technically on a fast lap, however, he's going particularly slow on his run up to turn number 1. But look at Kake Piroppo's second split. I was talking the 57s. It's a 57.82. Now that is very, very close to Rick Cardle's split 3 time. So if Kake can manage the car, I mean, his inside fronts on both of the fronts are incredibly hot, way hotter than Rick Cardle's. If he can manage that temperature, hit his marks, hit the apex. I think there was a bit of a lockup on the way into 15 there. We'll see how he fares through the chicane of 16. If he's not on to take Rick Cardle away from pole position, he's on from potentially a front row start as he navigates the particularly high curves of turn number 16. Nice and tidy through there, and it's just a straight line shoot now to start finish line.
So easy to roll the car in that final chicane, and it is an improvement.
Look how close he got to Rick Cardle. Arguably, if he had a bit less temperature, maybe if he'd not made the mistake that he made into turn number 3, where he locked up and repeated it as well in turn number 15, he could have been on the other side of the front row. But nonetheless, impressive from Kake Piroppo in second position, 8/100ths of a second.
Rick Cardle, the current pole sitter, again gone out for another lap. He's last on track, making his way through turn 12 under the bridge. And it looks to me he's actually just missed out on another lap.
I think he has. He's actually green on our map, but no split times have been set at the moment.
Oh, he must have
The
been
current
just
lap time for him it's a 2 minute 13 at the moment. So definitely the lap time is counting up, but splits are not being registered. So the other last car across the line is Race Green's Motorsport Redbot.
And he improves his time, but he's not that much further up the list.
So it does look like Pedro was our fastest qualifying XFR.
Almost 2 seconds behind the pole sitter Rick Cardle on the UFR.
Yeah, surprising amount of times as well set in the second half of the qualifying session. So whether drivers were using the earlier stages of qualifying as like a feeler for the conditions, or whether they just made mistakes. You know, we only had, I think, 13 times on the board when it came to around about 8 or 9 minutes to go, and then, you know, we've got 23 now, so plenty times on the board. Quite a spread of times, the fastest being a 53.13 and the slowest being a 58.30. So we'll see if anybody in the race can gain a bit of pace. Of course, obviously when the cars are all bunched up together, You, as a driver, would take notice of the car ahead of you, and if that car happens to be faster, you know, you'll be noticing that they'll be braking a bit later, and there's definitely things that you can learn by following another person. So we'll see. I mean, obviously these cars can battle quite closely. They don't necessarily rely upon aero as much as, say, for example, the Formula BMW or the FOX. So we should be able to see pack racing necessarily.
It'll be interesting to see if the XFR can hold the positions, because as it is faster in a straight line, you might imagine that it's harder for the UFRs to get alongside and maybe put their nose in.
Well, the way I see it, it's a very, very similar situation to the paradox we have on iRacing with the GT4. So the Cayman and the M4 GT4. Now the M4 is a bit heavier, but it's also the one that's faster in a straight line. And I mean, the track that we were practicing at Adam last week, Okayama, it was around about a second off pace, but you did tremendously well in the slower of the two cars. So we could see the same thing happen here in the race today. So it's not over for the XFR. However, they are at, like we said, a disadvantage, being the more powerful of the two, but definitely 240 kilograms heavier is just night and day difference. You know, there's a 25 horsepower to weight kind of per ton deficit between the two cars. The UFR with 304 brake horsepower per ton, and the XFR, the slightly heavier one, with 279 brake horsepower per ton. We'll see how everybody fares in the race.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting challenge for the drivers today. The circuit is, you should be able to get moves done through most of the corners, but through sector 3 and sector 4, you've got some nice flowing corners which might be harder to get alongside. And also, to note, turn 6, it's at the end of a big long straight where you would normally see drivers overtaking each other, but it's a very fast, interesting corner where you can only really go single file. So it'd be interesting to see if anyone tries a move, a risky move up the inside.
So I'll quickly just run you down our order for the start of race number 1 here today. So Sidus is Rick Cardle on pole with a 2-minute 53.13 second lap time. Very impressive. Energy Virtual Racing's Kaike Paroppo starts alongside him on row number 1. Only is that 8/100ths of a second shy of the pole time, so nice and close at the front. Arco is on row number 2 alongside Yes Motorsports Unite. Team at Racing's Japan in 5th position with World Class Lions Jari Katila in P number 6. Gavin Pete. Team Rock Racing P7 alongside World Class Lions Pekka Koivunen in P number 8. Team Rock Racing's Texas in P9. Road Appraiser's Pedro in 10th position. So your top 10 separated by around about just over a second. Then we've got Team Rock Racing's Crin and Frank in 11th and 12th. MRC's Michael in 13th. Yanni Katila for World Class Lions in 14th. Race Green Autosports Redbot 15th. Team Rock Racing Salmonen in 16th position. Soini for World Class Lions in 17th. Magic for Race Green in 18th position. And then who have we got? Everybody's gridding up at the moment, so just slightly ran out of time there. And then we've got Kid, Born to Race Twin, Chris McElroy for TC Racing, MRC's Mega, Born to Race Scattle, Road Appraiser Pedro, and Paroppo starts at the back of the grid.
We're
It's
green
interesting
already.
to see. Yeah, we're green.
What's happened to Paroppo? Paroppo's down in 23rd position.
So did Pedro. Pedro was up in the mid pack and he renamed too. He was the leading XFR.
You see Arco with a brilliant start, already alongside Rick Cardle before we get into turn number 1. He's almost going to have the overlap done before the braking zone, but look how late Rick Cardle was there braking.
Really
That's
wide.
a definitely
misjudged that, obviously. I think he got carried away with the warm tyres during that qualifying session. It caught him out when they were cold. So Arco leads from Unite as he's side by side with Japan through the left right of turn number 2 now. very hard to go side by side as Gavin
line.
Pete has to check up, but Rick Cardle's coming back. We're almost going to be 3 wide into the braking zone for turn number 3 now. Who's going to come out on top? Rick Cardle very close to the back of Jaban, but Gavin Pete on the inside of them both here. Jaban on the outside with a better run. Rick Cardle now alongside Gavin Pete through the right-hander. Team Rock Racing, world-class line inside a sandwiches almost as Jaban comes out on top now in 3rd position. Rick Cardle trailed by Gavin Pete at the moment. Gavin Pete with a run, Sidus and Team Rock Racing side by side now down the back straight. Who's going to come out on top for this one? Now, you can take the initial left-hander of turn 6 flat, but you have to change down a gear just before the right-hander. And Gavin Pete is the one who takes the apex, but just doesn't get the run out that he needs, and Rick Cardle retakes that position.
Behind, almost 3 wide, as we see Pekka Koivunen go up the inside of Jari Katila.
And Frank spins his teammate Quinn.
Luckily, these cars being front-wheel drive, not all the weight's on the rears. It's very easy to catch a car once you go into almost a slide kind of thing. It's just kind of press a loud pedal and hope, obviously with it being front-wheel drive, that it will normalise itself. So
Quinn is completely unstable now, compromising the lines of Salmon and Michael.
Now looking at Crin's tyres, they're incredibly dirty, so you still got to scrub them off. Obviously running over the grass in Live for Speed, you pick up dirt on your tyres and you have to scrub that off like you would in real life. So
got a car in the wall in the background.
Now, who's that in the wall?
B2R Scattle in the wall. We didn't catch what happened there, but can't be good.
No, big hit there. Meanwhile up front, it looks like we've got a battle on between Rick Cardle and Jaban.
Yeah, after his to the inside, Rick Cardle goes. Pretty easy move that. Looks like he makes it stick. Jaban's got the little bit of contact. Jaban was going to have the run there, but it doesn't look like he will.
They're just looking how the drivers have fared on this opening lap so far. Now we know Kake Propo and Pedro both renamed.
And in the background we've got Crin
on his
side.
So disaster for the Team Rock Racing driver, down in 22nd position. He joins the spectators. That will be the end of his race, unfortunately.
That's something we didn't really talk about in the build-up. That last chicane, you've got to be incredibly careful, especially in these cars, as they are quite susceptible to rolling on the high curbs.
Yeah, it also comes into the setup of the car. Also, you want a stiff car as you can possibly get away with, just for the roll center kind of thing. Everything that you have to adjust, like the anti-roll bars, the stiffness of the springs and everything, you have to take that into consideration when you attack the curbs into turn number 16, for example.
Joni Katila's gone up the inside of Texas into turn 3, makes the move stick. He's chasing down Jari Katila.
So father and son reunited on track.
Indeed.
Now Kake Propo, remember how him and Pedro both renamed, unfortunately lost out on the qualifying attempt after renaming, chucked him to the back of the grid. Kake Propo's up to 11th place and he's currently side by side with Salmonen for Team Rock Racing as we approach turn number 6. Who's going to come out on top of this one? Salmonen holds it around the outside and there is a slight bit of contact there as they come together towards the apex of the second right of turn number 6, and that's allowed Frank to get alongside Kake Propo up into turn number 7. Now who's going to come out on top of this? Kake with the overlap turns it into the apex and get it in and out nice and cleanly. You'll want to get past Salmonen in the twisty sections, obviously being in the lighter of the 2 cars available. Salmonen will be stronger down the straights, obviously he's faster in a straight line, but Kake needs to get around this XFR if he's going to get himself up into 10th position. Moves out to the left now for turn number 10. Contact between the 2 at the apex. Salmonen not giving him much room, but Frank's followed Kake Propo through, so Salmonen down 2 positions now into 12th as we go under the Michelin Bridge for the second time.
As up ahead we've got Joni Katila and Pekka Koivunen going side by side. Pekka Koivunen's backed out. The teammates, of course, they don't want to be colliding.
Yeah, there's a streak of 3 world-class Lions cars from 6th to 8th position. And they're only going to get closer towards the braking zone. What can Pekka Koivunen do now?
Pekka Koivunen holding back, not making any silly moves on his teammate.
Tighter on the apex though, so they're going to be very close on the braking zone for turn number 16.
Joni Catilla's nice and smooth through that final corner. Interesting to note how at the weekend in the GT2 Challenge, Joni Catilla wrapped up the championship and won it, but in today's race he's not even in the top 5. Obviously doesn't like these front wheel drive NGTs.
I think we might have a potential battle for the lead unfolding at the moment, because yes, Unite has just set the fastest lap of the race, over 6/10 faster than what Arco managed last time around. So I wonder what Unite's done from P2 to get his car warmed up and hit those marks. As you know, the difference is significant.
Yeah, we didn't see much of Unite in practice or qualifying. He kind of kept quiet, but snuck in a lap at the end, and that's usual for him. He's not very fast in qualifying, but in every race he's competing for the podiums.
Yeah, so Unite currently holds the fastest split 3 and 4 of anybody on the grid, and that's a 10th faster in split 3 than the man in pole position, and about, I think that's about just over 3/10 faster in the final split than the man in the lead at the moment. So the gap at the last split, which was halfway down the back straight that we're running down now, was 0.58 of a second. We'll see if that can come down any more.
Interesting to note that later in the week, Yes Unite and Joni Catilla are going to be teammates in the iRacing 24-hour Le Mans. However, here they're not teammates. They're well, enemies, I guess.
Kake Propo is making his way up through the order. He's battling with Texas at the moment on the outside of turn number 7. Very close for the guys, all in the same car. Okay, looking for a way around Texas. Had the move almost done through turn number 7, but ran slightly wide as you just caught the end of that before turn number 8. Meanwhile, the double apex right of turn number 9, Texas, just seems to be driving away from Kake at the moment, since he had the drive from the exit of turn number 7. But what can Kake do to retaliate? Again, we run under the Michelin bridge. The gap from Kake to Texas is 0.36 of a second.
Oh, Jaban was in the wall. He's slow on the back straight, now down to uphill to the final hairpin. Right hand damage.
And Catilla's going to have him before we get to the apex of turn number 7 if he carries the speed that he's carrying. You can see just how fast the World Class Lions car closed up to the back of Jaban's Team Racing machine. Jaban's struggling with those right-handers though.
Jaban's got quite a lot of right-hand damage, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him go into the pits.
Very, very short race here though. We've only got 6 laps. This will be at the line.
Oh, roll behind!
So...
Who's that on the roof? Is it Texas?
Oh,
Texas,
wow.
Yeah.
Texas spectates.
Michael's had a bit of an issue as well. Down in 16th, he got all out of shape. He's got a bit of front left damage that he picked up. Meanwhile, at the front, the gap's getting a bit closer. Unite was a 10th slower than Arco that last lap, but Arco took the fastest split 1 away from Unite last time around. But Unite is still the fastest of anybody in that final sector.
Interesting to see how Rick Cardle, he was so much faster in qualifying than everyone else, but he's not been able to make up any ground towards Yes Unite.
Yeah, probably now everyone is on a race set, and so it's even playing field. While in the qualifying session you had this very different philosophical approach to designing the setups for 1 lap or for more, and it seemed like Ricardo had been very fortunate with the way traffic fell and everything, so he could use the best out of his race set.
In saying that, I think I've done one of my first commentator's curses. Rick Cardle's a whole ½ second faster than Nico in the first sector, so maybe Nico's making a few mistakes.
Well, we've been live for 41 minutes and Adam's already joined us by jinxing some stuff, so that's good.
At least Nico didn't do a Nico thing, as Chris would put it.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So Arco's still able to hit his marks and set personal best split 2 time at least. Unite goes again purple in split number 3. It's the only sector so far this lap. He's been faster than Arco. The gap was 1 second at split 2. It's now down to 0.8 again.
It's really interesting to note that Arco's front tyres are really in bad condition. They're quite red, whereas behind him, Unite's tyres are perfect.
And again, that could be down to either the setup with the pressures and cambers and toe being different, or that could just literally be down to the driver's right foot. As we know, every single car on the grid at the moment is on R3s on the front and R2s on the back, so everybody running exactly the same tyre compound as Arco gets it onto 2 wheels through turn number 16.
This has given Nico a run down into down along the home straight and into the first corner.
A little bit of communication through the lighting.
Well, something was going on there. I'm not quite sure what Arco was doing, but maybe trying to put Nico off or something. Who knows? Either way, Unite's moved up into the lead of this race, and
if he can hold it though,
quite a
he does get the exit that he needs. Meanwhile, if these two keep battling, Ricardo behind is going to be rubbing his hands together, because the gap between these two and Rick down in third was just about 2 seconds at the line. So Rick will be praying that these guys battle throughout the lap and bring that gap to himself down.
Oh, Pedro's upside down. So another retirement here, leaving 19 cars in the race.
Disaster for the fastest XFR in qualifying, at least. Unfortunate for him that he renamed at the worst possible moment and lost his qualifying efforts, really. Started from the back of the grid, made his way up a few positions, but it's over at least for race number 1 at turn number 16.
Nico's already pulled a decent gap to Arco. He's half a second faster so far on this lap.
Yeah, so split 1 for Nico was a 34.75 and for Arco a 35.16, so just over 0.4 of a second. You can see how much that gap's come up as well. Nico was just over a tenth faster in split number 2. As we look towards the battle for 8th position now, Kaike Parapo and Team Rock Racing Japan side by side through turn number 7. Japan had that move really done at the apex, was able to get the exit that he needed, used all that curb on the outside to get the traction and keep 8th position.
Surprising that Japan's been able to hold this so well, because he's got quite a lot of damage on his right side. Parapo, one of the faster drivers, I would have assumed he would have made his way past.
Meanwhile, at the front, they're squabbling again, so battles up and down the grid as Nico's trying to fend off Arco for first position. They're very, very close through turn number 13 and the second apex up here, which is turn number 14. Arco will, at the moment, have the inside line unless Nico can do some sort of switchback now, breaking it around about 80 meters again. Nico's going to try and hold it around the outside, but chooses at the last minute after Arco hit his apex so early to try and get turned in.
These guys are going to have to be careful. I think Pedro's still on the track. I think he might be slightly off on the grass, but he's registering still on the track. So
yeah.
Oh yeah, there he is. So yeah, luckily he didn't get in the way of these guys.
But meanwhile,
Rick hoping for someone to put him over.
Ricardo personal best, at least split number 3. We'll see the gap at the line. It was 2 seconds last time, but it's now 1.552. Nico in second position as they're still side by side on the last lap of the race now, entering turn 1 for the final time in this race at least. Arco later on the brakes, but you can see how he runs wide on the exit. They're still going to be side by side, so Nico with the switchback going to run into at least the braking point for turn number 2 side by side. Look how close they get towards the apex. Nico choosing to tuck into the slipstream of Arco and attempt to attack into turn number 3, but the only place Arco is going to let Nico attack is around the outside.
And Ricardo is really closed up due to these guys battling.
They've lost 3 tenths.
About a second.
So they've lost 3 tenths already this lap to Ricardo just from being side by side at basically every apex, but they will benefit ever so slightly on this straight, of course. having each other's draft. If Nico goes around Arco, depending on how fast he gets around and Arco can tuck back in, they will use each other to gain a bit of straight line speed. You can see as soon as Arco is available to tuck back in, he does so, but it's just not the straight's not long enough. But look how close Rick Cardle is now. At the last split, they were perfectly side by side, and Rick Cardle 0.95 seconds to both drivers.
If I was Arco here, I would just stay behind Nico as he goes wide. Yeah, I would just stay behind Nico and settle for second, because if he keeps battling, Rick Cardle was going to catch up.
Well, Rick Cardle's definitely pulled something out of the bag, because not only are these guys battling, but Rick Cardle set personal best split 1 and split number 2, being over 4 tenths faster than Arco in the second sector.
But we're already approaching the final sector of this race, don't forget.
We are indeed. So if there's going to be a move for any positions, it needs to be done and dusted on this lap, because drivers will not get another attempt. As
Nico's wide through the exit of turn 12, so Arco isn't quite in draft distance. That's a shame.
So Rick Cardle, slower than Arco but faster than Unite at the moment. I don't think he's going to be close enough to challenge unless there's something at the front that's pretty catastrophic, but Arco and Unite will lead us into turn 15 for the final time, and Arco needs to get quite a bit closer to Nico if he's going to get anything done. You could see.
Don't forget, Jack, that the chicane it's already claimed a few victims in this race. They've got to do it one more time.
Behind we've got a damaged Jaban going up the inside of Frank.
But Nico, he takes to the curb ever so slightly. Luckily, not enough to unsettle the car, and he will come across the line to win race 1 here at Aston Grand Touring. Brilliant display of battles there for the guys. You can see, look at the fastest laps for Unite and Arco. 100th of a second really separated them.
Jaban still in the slipstream of Pekka Koivunen, not enough for the line.
Close between Kid and Salmonen there. Kid getting the advantage over Salmonen in the XRR battle. Pedro with the DNF. And Elmo crossing the line in 17th.
When Rick damaged team is Soine rounding off the grid.
When Rick Cardle crossed the line, he held the fastest lap, but was taken away from him at the dying seconds by Piroppo, who's the only driver really on the grid to get into the 52s and quite comfortably.
It looks like someone's gone to try and rescue Pedro, but they're going to be let down a little bit because I think Pedro's already been. Oh, is Pedro still on his roof?
Yes, he's still on his roof.
So they're going to try and help him across the line. Let's see if that ends up happening.
But yeah, like I was saying, Kaike, on that last lap, Purple split 1, 2 and 3 in a personal best split 4. The only driver to get into the 52s. We'll see where he fares in race number 2.
So am I right in saying a 52 is faster than qualifying laps?
You're right.
With some draft, I assume. But yeah.
So yeah, quite a nice and clean, surprisingly clean actually. I guess we've got less drivers to cause collisions.
That's because you weren't in the race.
Yeah, probably.
I'm joking, obviously.
Are you though?
No. Alright, we're going to take a short break here. We'll be back for the start of race number 2. Don't go anywhere.
just a quick rundown of the finishing order of race 1. Yesterday night wins the race in front of Conquest Racing's Arco and Sidus Racing's Ricardo. Fourth goes to Gavin Pete from Team Rock Racing. Then he's followed by World Class Lions Jari Katia and Jonit Katia. Energy Virtual Racing's Kaiki Piroppo in 7th position. Pekka Koivunen for World Class Lions in 8th. Then it's the Team Rock Racing duo of Japan and Frank. 11th position for Kit. 12th position for Salmonen, also Team Rock Racing. 13th and 14th position for the Race Green Autosport cars of Magic and Redbot. 15th position, it's Master Race cars Michael. 16th position, Born to Race Twin. 17th, Chris McElroy for TC Racing. 18th position, Master Race cars Mega. And last but not least, 19th position for World Class Lions Team Soini, who's also starting the next race from the pole position. So we are going to see a complete reverse grid for the 19 finishers.
Thanks for that, Thilo. Yeah, I really enjoyed that battle. It was nice to see a clean finish to the race with the top 3 guys within touching distance of each other. And yeah, how do we think they're going to fare at the beginning of race 2 with we predict around a 23 or 24 car start?
We were just talking in the little intermission before we came back and ran down the order, and I'm just going to go out and put my hands up and say my money on this is on Piroppo, because he starts ahead, of course, of the faster drivers that we saw at the sharp end of grid in race 1. So Piroppo taking the fastest lap in the dying moments of the race shows that he's got the pace. He had the pace in qualifying. He qualified second, but unfortunately, since he renamed himself, had to start from the back of the grid and managed to get himself up to 7th position. So we know he can overtake, and we know he's got the pace. And with the winners from race 1 starting 3, 4, 5 cars behind him, that to me, he has what it takes. We'll see. So my money's on Piroppo.
I think it'll be interesting to see what Japan does, because for most of that race he had quite a bit of damage, and he was still managing to keep, he stayed in the top 10. He still managed some speed. So since he's starting ahead of Piroppo, it'll be interesting to see if they battle, or if Piroppo can just go past easily, or what.
Well, anything can happen. So nothing is discarded. What happened to Japan picking the damage up in race 1 could happen to anybody on the grid in race number 2. So we will see.
And you don't have to forget that they have to get around the rest of the field before fighting for the win.
Those who are unfamiliar with the format here of TRR we're halfway through round 24. The second race is a reverse grid, a fully reverse grid race, which is it's always provides entertainment. There's still time to sign up for this. Of course, there are still 20 rounds left after today. 44 round season running all throughout the year. You can sign up on the LFS forum in the Team Rock Racing subforum section.
As just got the announcement for 2 minutes left till race 2. Drivers will be preparing their setups, making any changes they think are necessary.
Looking at them in the little intermission that they have between races, they're still allowed on track, so can potentially go and get a couple minutes practicing before the second race commences. Now, just looking at the amount of XFRs towards the back of the grid, so from 11th to 14th, and then from 15th to 17th, there's quite a few XFRs all bunched up there. We'll see how they fare at the start. So we think the UFR has the initial launch, but we'll see if the straight's long enough for the XFRs to maybe attack a bit more into turn number 1 for the start of race number 2. So World Class Lions Soini at the moment is the man who classified last in race number 1 in 19th. We know there's more than that. I think there's 23 or 24 drivers that set times in qualifying, and if they stuck around, they will slot onto the back of the grid. So I think Soini and Mega will be alongside each other on the start of race number 2 on the front row. So both in UFRs, we'll see how they get on. Chris McElroy for TC Racing will be alongside Born to Race's twin. Both of them in XFRs on row number 2. And then we've got Michael in the UFR rounding out at least the top 5 for race number 2. So shouldn't be too long before everything gets back underway.
10 seconds.
The tension builds once again.
So here we go then. You want to take us away for the start, Pete, or?
Can do.
Let's go then.
Here we can see Teemu Soini lining up on the front row. Alongside him is Master Race Cars Mega. 1 light, 2 lights. And we're green for race number 2. A good start there for Soini, actually. Or maybe just a poorer start there for Mega. Who knows? Almo gets a good start in the XFR, but immediately swamped by Michael. As the cars head into turn number 1, we've got 3 wide.
Gavin Pete's gone incredibly deep there. Gavin Pete catches out Piroppo. He touched Koiven and Kaike Piroppo, unfortunately, now last. So disaster for at least my favourite for the race, but Rick Cardle's made his way through.
3 wide through the chicane. Mega running very unstable. Somehow everyone survived, apart from Unite in the background.
Pete making a big lunge up the inside, kept it clean, making up a lot of places there.
Definitely almost a repeat of what we saw into turn number 1. Still jostling for position though, almost 4 wide at the apex for turn number 4. Soini off the grass, and there's contact between Arco and Rick Cardle. Pekka Koivunen is on the grass and Arco, there's contact between the two, and Arco gets spun around and takes Skatilla with him too, but Rick Cardle is through. The disaster towards the back of the grid. Meanwhile, Piroppo, who was last, has caught the pack back up and is in between the sandwich right now through the back straight.
Even though Piroppo was almost dead last, he's managed to get past a lot of the faster drivers due to their collision.
So he's managed to regroup, and the gap from Piroppo about 4 positions forward to Rick Cardle was about 1.3 seconds. So good news at least for Kaike, back down in 16th now, about to take 15th away from Kryn as we have a massive battle for 2nd position.
In 3rd we've got Mega with a massive slide. Luckily he saves it, but he's losing a lot of positions there.
Luckily we're in the early stages of the race, so if anything this will benefit him warming his tyres up. It's not too catastrophic as we're 3 wide in the background almost at the apex for the first left-hander in the mid-sector, turn number 10 now.
So we go on board with Rick Cardle as he goes up the inside of Kid. This will turn to the outside, and got to remember Kid's also in the faster XFR, so we'll see if Cardle can do anything with this run.
Couple of potential strategic lifts there for Rick Cardle. I don't know if you can hear that on the stream. He's potentially timing his run to dive up the inside of the number 42 red XFR of Kid through to turn number 15, and he does indeed get the jump and moves up to 10th position as Mega is still on the grass there on the left. He's trying to keep it in a straight line. You don't want to just chuck the car back onto the track, obviously with this being front wheel drive, but you can see how that hindered him up to turn number 16. Rick Cardle around the outside up to 9th.
Up to 3rd. He's not as he goes side by side with Salmonen. We didn't really consider him for the win or the top 3, but he's got a decent gap back to 5th, so if these guys can keep it fast.
Look how late he is on the brakes though. Putting it all on the table. He's past Salmonen and now side by side with Twin, but Twin in the faster of the 2 cars has the overlap for turn number 2 now as we split into single file. What can happen on the exit though? Gavin Pete, very, very fast 2nd apex speed for turn number 2. Again on the outside for turn number 3, just gets the overlap done at the last minute.
Cuts right across his front.
He does indeed. Gavin hungry for that second step up on to the podium now. What can he do to bring the gap down to Michael, as the XRRs behind him are still battling? Salmon and has taken third position away from Twin both in the XFRs.
Not surprising that Pete made up a lot of ground through that sector, as it is UFR heaven compared to the XFR, which loses a lot of time there.
Meanwhile, in the background, we're going to be almost 3 wide now. Rick Hardle struggling to get past Redbot, and Yoni Katila now dives around the outside through turn number 6. Impressive move, but you can see just how much speed Redbot was able to carry through turn number 6. He's
Twin going
back
to the outside of Salmonen, up ahead. Little slide, trying to cut back, and Frank is threatening the inside there. He decides to hold back, probably a good idea.
Oh, Twin gets it all wrong. Twin nearly on the grass. And that lets Frank through.
It does indeed. Now, Kaike Paroppo in 11th position's only got 2 cars separating him from Rick Cardle. And if Rick Cardle can... I mean, there's still quite a bit to ask. Obviously, we've got quite a few laps. And the laps are quite long, but the gap from Rick Cardle to the lead is 3.5 seconds, so it's definitely doable. Paroppo a little bit more, 4.5 seconds.
As we see
he's all over the back of Kid.
As we see Jaban go around the outside of Twin, he's not quite got the speed, because Twin does have a draft from Frank up ahead, and they almost make contact. There is contact between Twin and Frank, and Twin, big lock up. That is going to ruin his tyres, which you can only imagine he's going to end up quite far back.
Oh, battle for the lead, as Michael is now defending in his... Salmonen goes wide through the chicane.
And Frank into the back of Salmonen. Jaban
Really
round the
dangerous
outside,
rejoin.
and Yoni Katila as well is going to take 2 positions away from those, so Jaban and Frank now 3rd and 4th respectively. But Paroppo is catching up to the back of this trio. He's got Redbot to get around, and then there's a gaggle. Look at Rick Cardle with 3 wide, almost Frank, Twin, and Rick Cardle 3 wide as we approach turn number 1. Rick Cardle on the inside. Can he get it slowed down? He just manages to, but can he get the exit he wants? Frank with a very strong exit. We'll put him on the outside for turn number 2. However, he's quite a fair bit alongside. I'll be curious to see if he backs out of this. He does. They get incredibly close as they slow to the apex speed for turn number 2, but Frank's going to come back at Rick Cardle now. On the outside, though, this time, Rick Cardle breaks later. What's going to happen? Frank
Michael
looking all over the back.
Up ahead, yeah.
Pete.
He now has
Change
to
to
draft
the
down
lead.
the straight, though. Can Michael come back at your race leader Gavin Pete for Team Rock Racing before we approach turn number 6?
As Kaike Paroppo makes a move on Twin behind. And a perfect example of the speed of the XFR over the UFR.
Unite took the wrong route. Something must have happened there, so Nico's out of the race. Probably.
Oh, Twin!
Oh, Twin!
Catching the grass, spinning right round in front of a bunch of drivers. Luckily, no one collected him.
Yeah, just a bit wide out of turn number 6, and just the rear left just touched that gravel or grass, and it just took him.
Gavin Pete's under pressure from Michael. Wasn't really expecting that, because Michael, he was quite far down the grid in the last race, but he's kept his cool here. He's decent pace.
Well, Michael put the decals upside down on his car because he thought he would be upside down at some point during the race. So not being upside down actually makes him fast.
Who would have thought it?
Meanwhile, we've got a couple of moves going on further back. Rick Cardle with a run on Salmon, and Paroppo with a run on Frank. Both
Michael
fighting to get through.
Run, pulling out of the slipstream.
We are side by side at the front, though.
And he just gets an overlap, but doesn't pull in front of Pete. Nice bit of racing room there. Big slide on the entry. Shame there. He could have kept that position.
For the aftermath of the battles further back, Rick Cardle not able to get around Salmonen, but Paroppo able to get past Frank. Rick Cardle and Paroppo will be battling very close here.
Bad entry, and that's given Rick the run he needs.
He had to check up though, Rick. So
Here comes Paroppo.
Ricciardo needs to get around and tuck into the slipstream. Look at the speed of the XFR though, is already attacking back.
Superior straight line speed being shown
Ricciardo's
there.
going to have to make a big dive here to stand any chance.
He's going to try it around the outside of Paroppo. Ooh, and has to
Oh,
check
bit
up
of
again.
contact. Hits Salmon and this gives Paroppo easy line up the inside.
So a brilliant run for the man who now finds himself in 5th position after being last after turn 1 on the very first lap. He's got his work cut out to catch up to the front of the pack. They were on lap 4 of 6 and the gap to the lead from Paroppo is 3.66 seconds. Meanwhile, Salmon and Ricciardo still side by side on the exit
outside for Ricciardo there.
of turn number 3.
Oh, contact with Salmonen. But also Frank with trouble.
Yeah, who's that? Is that Kid? Kid kind of didn't really respond to the slower cars ahead and ran into the back of Frank and has got a heck of a run now. And yeah, 3 cars he's going to overtake.
Salmon and sticking his nose where it maybe shouldn't have been, but...
Not over for Rick though. He's got a run on Kid if he can. We've seen him make a cheeky move onto around the outside there in the initial left-hander of turn number 6, but struggling now behind Kid. He needs to get past so he can get the gap to the leaders down a bit more. He has the inside line, brakes a bit later. Is he gonna hit his apex?
And again, Salmon and tapping the back of cars in front. But luckily, Kid wasn't affected that much. As he looks to the inside, backs out as I would have thought he would.
So look how much time Ricciardo's lost to Kaike Paroppo
up front
now.
We've got Jaban going up the inside of Michael into turn 10. Not a normal place to see an overtake, but it's worked out well.
Yeah,
They've
very
only got to
wide track.
assume Michael will have a good run, maybe not. Maybe not the best of runs out of turn 12.
He does seem to keep the speed up though, even though taking the tighter line means obviously he's got to have more steering lock. It will scrub the speed off, but with the added draft you can see he's able to get close, maybe close enough to make him move up into turn number 15, but very unusual overtaking place like you said, Adam, but very wide track, pretty narrow cars.
Pedro, Redbot and Frank.
We just saw Jaban move up to P2 there.
Oh, that's Salmon into Kid. Luckily, Kid was able to keep that pointing in a straight line. Like I said, being it a front-wheel drive car, a lot easier to catch the oversteer, but struggles more with understeers. Kid takes a lot of curb through the last corner, and Frank side by side around the outside manages to get that move done. Pedro's going to follow him too. Pedro with his right tyres on the grass, almost to get around Kid, but he's got Frank's draft now.
We're on the penultimate lap.
Pedro sweeps to the outside.
Look at that overspeed in the XFR, that's crazy.
Who's late on the brakes? So Frank very, very late on the brakes there as they all kind of filter out and almost do a complete switch back on one another. Pedro and Kid still both side by side. Kid slightly ahead though before we get to turn number 2. Pedro's not going to back out of it. They're going to be side by side for the second apex of turn number 2, and that's the slow way to do it, unfortunately. Look how close Redbot is getting to the back of these pair now.
Looking up the inside though, gets it stopped just in time. Keeps side by side, but if I was him, I would back out by now.
Who's going to get the run onto the back straight out of turn number 5? You can see Pedro took a bit to the AstroTurf there.
Yeah,
So
Kid not only having a nice run, but also with a bit of slipstream, maybe not. Looks the outside of Pedro.
Yeah, but he pulled out alongside and didn't really quite have the overspeed as he almost made contact. Into turn number 6 now for the 5th time. We'll only have one more lap after this. Pedro onto the grass, manages to keep it pointed in a straight line, but you can see that lack of traction makes it very easy for Kid to take it past the Salmon and sends it on Redbot just behind in the back of shot there. Salmon and perfect apex, perfect entry and exit as well. Managed to get the move done and dusted. He moves up to 10th position now.
It's almost like multi-class racing. We've got a pack of XFRs
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
But just looking forward, Kaike Paroppo has taken a position away from Michael, so he's catching up to the back of the leaders now. You can see he's only got Catilla, Jaban and Gavin Pete ahead of him, and he's absolutely flying is Kaike Propo. Purple last time around, so the fastest lap of the race. Purple in split number 2 this time around.
This looks like it's
2
going to be
seconds to the race lead and 1.2 laps to do it almost, so can he do it?
looks like it's going to be a brilliant climax to the race. Not sure if he can quite catch up with Pete, but with that time he set last lap and the way he's going this lap, he might indeed catch him.
Well, last time around, Propo with 53.01 and your race leader of 54.11, so 1.1 seconds faster exactly. If Propo can keep this pace up and the gap is doable at the line, oh, and Catilla rolls it ahead. Yoni Catilla rolls it, manages to land on his wheels, but disaster for the world-class Lions car. Joins the spectators and unfortunately retires from the race at the very last opportunity.
Frank is upside down.
A disaster then for a few.
Chris also with a mistake at the chicane. That's quite a lot of, that's a statistical anomaly there. Quite a lot of cars in the chicane on lap 5.
The Jaban and Gavin Pete for the race lead were very, very close into turn number 1. Kaike's got plenty of clean air to catch up to the back of these two. Now, if they fight, that's exactly what Piroppo wants from third position. That gives him a little bit of a boost to kind of catch the cars ahead. Now, the gap is 1.7 to the race leader from Piroppo. It was 1.8 at the line, so exactly a tenth faster is Piroppo so far this lap. He's definitely got his work cut out though, with his 1.1 seconds to the car ahead and 1.7 to the lead.
I wonder if we are going to see a bit of teamwork if Jaban catches up to the back of Pete, because if Pete doesn't let him pass, if he holds his position, Kaike might catch up and could ruin a good 1-2 finish for the TRR guys.
So
but he doesn't have the time.
Yeah, Piroppo's taken a tenth and a half out of Jaban, and the gap to Gavin Pete's gone up to Gavin Pete. Purple so far in split number 2. He does not want to be caught, but Piroppo is definitely catching up to the back of Jaban in second place, so we'll watch it as it unfolds, of course. You can see obviously visually it looks like Piroppo is getting closer into the slow speed apexes, but that's just because the cars of course bunch up. But as they reach the high speeds you can see them spread out. But Jaban, I don't know if he's struggling with potentially warm tyres, but Piroppo is just homing in on them all. It's unbelievable the pace he's able to carry so late, and with the damage that he's got, obviously we saw him tangle in the first corner on the first lap. Now he has visual rear right damage to the point where that car looks like it's not as wide as it is at the front.
yeah, it is definitely some damage to the rear axis, and he's going to feel it.
Mechanically though, it looks okay.
Well, yeah, but still the width and the back is highly compromised, even though it does not show in these damage meters. You can.
Yep.
Yeah, luckily the fact that it is a front-wheel drive car, the rear isn't as important. You know, you still want 4 tires, but you know it's not as bad as losing the rear in a rear-wheel drive car.
So Gavin Pete rounds the final corner to take victory in race number 2 here at Aston Grand Touring. Brilliant drive from him. Jaban closely follows in second place, and Kaike Piroppo just not able to do anything to catch the leading pair in the dying stages of the races though. Brilliant for him to finish third, last step on the podium.
Texas and Skettle side by side to the line. Skettle.
Texas is just gonna get it, but is that the closest finish we've had today? I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, 1/100th of a second separated them both at the line there. Borderline identical across the line, but brilliant for Texas to retain 11th position.
As Kryn rounds out the grid in P17.
Well, what a thrill ride those 2 races were. Obviously, a little bit more crashy the second race, as we expect. Reverse grid start, all the cars condensing together, and crashes are inevitable, really. But yeah, some spicy action up and down the grid, and well done to Kaike Piroppo, you have to say, for recovering from that incident on lap 1 to getting back onto the podium. So Jack, your prediction not quite right, but you definitely backed the right horse.
I do believe if we had a couple more laps, he would have found himself definitely on that top step there, because the fastest lap he set was a 53.01 on lap number 4, and he carried that pace through to the dying stage of the races, because on the very last lap he was 1/100th of a second shy of his fastest lap, doing a 53.02. So, you know, he would have definitely just one more lap. But of course, saying that, he could have caught up to the back, but getting past and keeping that position is another thing entirely. So, but no, I think he'll definitely be happy for 3rd position there.
Yeah, great result.
So the results of the second race of tonight's 24th round in the TRR Championship 2020. Gavin Peet wins from Japan, both for Team Rock Racing. 3rd position and last spot on the podium, again with the fastest lap time, Kaike Piroppo for Energy Virtual Racing. In 4th follows Michael for Master Race Car. 5th side is Rick Cardle. 6th goes to Kit with the best placed XFR. Closely contested by Pedro for Roda Presa, Race Green's Redbot, Tom Salmonen for Team Rock Racing, and a Magic for Race Green Autosports on the following positions. So a nice even split, top 5 UFR, top P6 to 10 XFR. In 11th position, it's Team Rock Racing's Texas. He's followed by Born to Race Scattle, World Class Lions Yari Katia. In 14th position, TC Racing's Chris McElroy. 15th and 16th go to World Class Lions with Pekka Koivunen and Timo Soini. And last car to finish was the 24 of Kryn for Team Rock Racing.
So 19 classified drivers in race 1, 17 in race number 2, and the majority again being caught out by that turn 16 left chicane kind of complex that we have that makes up the final corner of the lap here at Aston Grand Touring. What are your thoughts to sum up the race, gents? Because I must say, we expected the racing to be pretty close. Obviously, these cars don't rely on aero as much, you know, slick tyres, hatchbacks, you know, front engine, front wheel drive, you know, that's just a recipe for close racing, and I think we've seen exactly that today. It's been brilliant.
I think at the start I was forgetting how much these cars like to roll. We saw quite a few rolls there in race 1 and race 2. Bit unfortunate, but yeah. Apart from that, the racing, it was nice and clean, you know, as you would expect from drivers like these.
On the whole, it was clean. Obviously, the occasional scuffle, but can be expected in such close racing. Yeah, you're right, Adam. Rolling not really something you consider at Aston, especially with what tend to be lower curbs everywhere, except obviously the final chicane that's caught a few cars out today. We're normally used to seeing the NGTs rolling at tracks like Fernbay, where the curbs are quite a lot higher, with such light cars with a fairly high centre of gravity. Yeah, they
narrow
do like to roll.
wheelbase as well.
Yeah, a short wheelbase as well for the UFR, but very narrow as well. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'll follow on and just say that I enjoyed today. Today's racing was definitely good, and yeah, bring on more.
Yeah, it was interesting to see. I think maybe the second race was maybe a bit cleaner, helped by the fact that we've only got about 20 racers today. So maybe not as much action as normal, but you know, some fairer racing going on.
Yeah, definitely. And with race 2 being what you'd say, and I'd agree with, the cleaner of the two, you wouldn't expect to see that the majority of the times with a complete reverse grid for race number 2, because of course you've got the slower guys towards the front and the faster guys towards the back, and turn 1 at least, that's a bit of a recipe for disaster. But No, very clean apart from Kaike Propo being caught out and completely dead last at one point. I think everybody else they sort of like took themselves out. If they had an accident, it was almost isolated. So not a lot of carnage, but a lot of clean racing. That's what everybody loves to see. It's what I know the viewers would love to see. A bit more carnage, but can't help but enjoy a really, really decent, fair race.
Yeah.
But this was definitely also helped by the fact that these are front-wheel driven cars, as once you make contact, you can still pull the car straight again. It wasn't like we didn't see much rubbing throughout the race. It's just definitely there was some colors of some cars you didn't know that were on the grid on your car in the end.
A lot of trading paint.
Swapping paint everywhere. Yeah. Well, that concludes round 24 of the Teamwork Racing 2020 Championship. Next week we are. Where are we next week?
Next week we are in Fernbay with
Green
the
reversed.
UF1.
That's going to be an interesting choice of combo. I'm not a huge fan of racing the UF1, but it's always close. And a track like Fernbay Black, is that? No, Fernbay Green.
Fernbay Green.
Fernbay Green
reverse.
yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a fast track. So in such slow cars, it'll be interesting to see what goes on there. Exits are quite important. Quite tight track too.
Should be a good one. Don't forget to follow the Sim Broadcasts channel here on Twitch for updates of when we go live. You can find all of the information on our upcoming broadcasts on our website at simbroadcasts.tv. The recordings of all of our streams go up onto our YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe to that too to receive updates when we post things there. All that's left to say is thanks for watching. Thank you to Adam, Jack and Thilo for joining us. And we hope to see you next week for the Teamwork Racing Championship. Thilo, do you want to part with a couple of words on your upcoming series and the series that we are broadcasting this weekend, starting this weekend?
So yeah, Sunday 21st of June we are staying in Aston actually. We're going to Grand Prix Reversed and start the Open Endurance Cup season. This is a season of 4 rounds where we use a 2-class system, with the top class being the NGTs, as we've seen here tonight, and the second class being the LRFs, so the LX6, the Raceabout, and the FZ5. So these classes are balanced by minimum pit stop times. And yeah, it's going to be a very interesting season, I guess. We have currently 18 cars signed up. Sign-ups stay open throughout the week. And yeah, it starts at 16:30 UTC with a 20-minute qualifying session, followed by a 57-lap race, so approximately 500 kilometers of race distance.
And in today's money, that's about 3 hours of racing, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so definitely a baby endurance format, and definitely one to sign up for if you've got a team of drivers. Is there a solo class in that series, or is it just?
You can join as a solo driver and do the 3 hours on your own if you want. But if you don't like that, you can team up with anyone you like who has an S2 license and jump into a car and race as a team.
Yeah, thank you for that, Thilo. So yeah, Sim Broadcast will be bringing you coverage of all 4 rounds of the 5th season of the Open Endurance Cup, run by Thilo, our very own Thilo. Hope to see you there. Thank you, gents, for joining me. Tune in next time on simbroadcasts.tv. Good night.